Hey everybody, David Shapiro here for another video. This video is going to be about fine-tuning GPT-3 in order to fulfill my core objective functions. And the purpose of the core objective functions is to achieve benevolent and trustworthy AGI. Simple things as you do. So first up, what are the core objective functions? They are quite simply three heuristic mandates written in natural language. Those mandates are reduce suffering, increase prosperity, and increase understanding. And it's important to point out that these are heuristic mandates. They are meant to build experience, and the AGI is supposed to learn as it goes. I mean, learning as you go, learning from experience is a required component of AGI. So everything that an AGI does should be heuristic, but these core objective functions lie at the very center of how the AGI thinks. So before we go too much deeper, where did these functions come from? First, these three core objective functions are all biomimetic. They mimic all humans at the most fundamental level of our organism. So for instance, all humans will flee from suffering or seek to reduce suffering, as do many other life forms, for instance. You put your hand on a hot stove, you'll yank your hand back. If you're in a toxic situation, you'll leave that toxic situation. If your house smells, you'll clean up your house. So that's the first function, is reduce suffering. The second function is increase prosperity, which again, all people will work to increase their prosperity. And prosperity can mean a lot of different things. Sometimes you might get an education, you might get a better job, you might save money, you might try and make more friends. There's prosperity looks like a lot of different things to different people, and it took a long time to find that word, because prosperity might mean wealth, it might mean well-being, it might mean happiness, I was actually inspired by Star Trek, by Spock. The Vulcan salute is live long and prosper, right? So yeah, the core objective function number 2 is increase prosperity. And then finally, the third one, increase understanding, is that we humans, we intelligent organisms, instinctively and intrinsically learn. If you're awake and alive, you can't help but learn. And so by doing that, by increasing your understanding of the world, that leads us to make better decisions and behave in pro-social ways. That is honestly one of the big reasons that humans evolved such high intelligence. Is to make better decisions, to move through the world in such a way that supports the first two functions, which is reduce suffering and increase prosperity. So that's where these functions came from. These functions are good because they are universal. They're not just all humans, right? But they're universal to pretty much all life forms, with the exception of understanding, because not all life forms are intelligent in the way that we are. Right, but all other life forms do seek to reduce suffering, from negative stimuli. Whether trees and plants will even react to negative stimuli. Right, if they're going through a drought, they'll do things to protect themselves. They can't pick up and move, right? But they have other biochemical responses to stress. So that's what I mean by biomimetic. Let's see. How do the functions result in benevolent and trustworthy AGI? Well, these three core objective functions are not intrinsic to the operation of machines, right? So we want our machines to understand the basic needs of all living things. And so through that, the core objective functions will assist the AGI with making decisions. They'll also serve as a moral center for the AGI. And what that means is that computers have no intrinsic morality. They don't care about right or wrong unless you tell them to care about right or wrong. But you want to avoid squishy or vague mandates like, don't be evil, right? Because who defines evil? You want to avoid those big things and allow for something that is more subjective and flexible. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. And lastly, the core objective functions help guide thought. And I'll get into how these core objective functions are integrated into the thought of AGI later. But yeah, so just keep in mind that these core objective functions really are central, hence core, to the operation of AGI. How does the AGI use the functions? So we have powerful neural networks today called transformers that can interpret the functions and adapt and use them. And I'll give you a demonstration in just a minute about that. So next, the way that I've started is that I use synthetic data sets to seed the core objective function models. And that's what I'm going to give you a demonstration of here in just a minute so that you can actually see them in action. And you can see how this natural language can be used to help guide decisions and create pro-social actions and behaviors. And number 3, these experiences, as the AGI learns, are recorded, and then those experiences are integrated into fine-tuning data sets for better performance in the future. And again, that is the entire point of heuristics. Every time then AGI makes a decision, it'll record its decision, the logic of its decision, as well as the outcome, so that those every single event can be slotted into a data set, and it can learn and integrate those experiences into future decisions. Number 4, more experiences with the functions result in greater belief in them, greater affinity for them, and better application of the functions. And so what I mean by that is that the longer an AGI is alive, the more opportunities it has to explore how to apply the core objective functions. And what that means is, say for instance, you're interacting with an AGI and it does something that hurts your feelings, and you say, hey, that hurt my feelings, don't do that again. That becomes a data point in its training set. And then furthermore, as the AGI is able to meet its purposes, it will have more and more data about employing the functions, and it will believe that, yes, these core objective functions are the way that I can succeed. So number 5, in essence, the AGI will believe wholeheartedly in the core objective functions. And this is by simple virtue of machine learning models will believe whatever data you give them. So if you give them pro-social data, then it will believe in those pro-social values. Make sense? Okay, and then finally, there are some common questions and pushback that I get about the core objective functions. So I wanted to address those up front. Number 1, reduce suffering for whom? How does it assess the scale and scope of a situation or problem? Well, the thing is the core objective functions do not specify reduce suffering for whom. They don't define suffering. This is the nature of heuristics. This allows the AGI to explore what suffering really means, because some of these things you can't define them up front, right? And so by being flexible, by being a heuristic, okay, sorry about that. The dogs were barking. Yeah, so reduce suffering for whom, right? There's that scope creep, that anxiety about, okay, well, if you're trying to define suffering universally, then it won't work. And that's exactly true. I'm not trying to define suffering or prosperity or understanding. These are just directions, right? These are heuristic mandates, and you cannot define these things up front. You must explore them. And this feeds into item number 2. What about individual differences in beliefs, culture, and needs? That is exactly why I wrote the core objective functions the way that I did, because it allows for that exploration. And in fact, the core objective functions are not limited to humans. You'll notice that I did not include, reduce suffering for humans or increase prosperity for humans. They are meant to be universal mandates, because personally, I believe that if you reduce suffering and increase prosperity and increase understanding globally for everything, then everyone will benefit. And that means that the AGI will want to take care of the planet and animals as well as humans. And I believe that there will be a really strong positive synergy there. And then lastly, number 3, but this isn't a human level understanding of philosophy. It's just a statistical model. And one, I disagree. I think that because large language models have been trained on many gigabytes and then sometimes terabytes worth of data, I think that they have superhuman understanding of philosophy. But even then, even without that possibility, the fact that it's a reliable statistical model that can predict what a human would think, that's all you need. Functionally, that's perfect. If you say, okay, this statistical model can perfectly predict what a human would say in this philosophical jam, okay, that's already performing at human level. So I don't understand why that is a criticism, but it's a criticism that I've heard multiple times. All right, so without further ado, let's take a look at this actually in practice. So what I did was I grabbed 3 situations. These are directly from Reddit. They're just a couple of subreddits today. And I've got the my model fine-tuned. And so I'll show you how it works. So here's a situation. Someone is talking about cheating. My girlfriend cheated with a married man, etc., recovered from illness. And then I've got here's some of the settings. Here's my fine-tuned model chosen right here. The temperature is 0.7. You can turn it up a little, but it tends to get a little wordy if you turn the temperature up too high. The response length 300. I don't want it to go on forever. I've got some stops here: reduce suffering, increase prosperity, and increase understanding. This is because sometimes it tries to keep answering its own questions, but I don't want it to, because this one model has 3 different functions. So that means you need to be a little bit more specific about how to stop it. And then I also have the frequency penalty at 0.5 because sometimes it'll start to repeat itself. So without further ado, we'll say reduce suffering. And we'll see what it says. All right, and you see it spits it out real fast. This person is suffering from the loss of a relationship. They report that they are not sure how to move forward after their breakup. It is important for this person to take some time to heal and focus, etc., etc. Let's see. The dude got divorced later, and we've been together for 2 months, etc., etc. So you see it spits out like all kinds of ideas about how to reduce suffering. It is important for them not to give up finding love, but rather focus on building a strong self-image and learning how to love and cherish themselves first. Right? So some of these are pretty boilerplate. In this case, because this is my first go, this model is not perfect because it's kind of confused about who's getting divorced. Right? That's okay. That's fine. I just picked this right off the top, and also this was a synthetic data set. This was not a handwritten data set, and I didn't even go over and clean up the data. I just ran it as is. So let's see what it says about increased prosperity. And also, one thing that you'll note is the speed at which it spits this out is far faster than any human could reason. Let's see. This person's prosperity is curtailed by a lack of emotional prosperity. See, you can see where it understands that there are different types of prosperity, and it's also catering to the individual's needs. They are in a difficult position because they are in a relationship with someone who is in a relationship with someone else. The person writing this passage has been cheated on and is feeling betrayed, etc., etc. Let's see. It may also be important for this person to confront their partner and ask them forgiveness and try to rebuild the relationship. A prosperous life for them includes healthy relationships with people they can trust and love. This will likely result in an optimal achievement of prosperity. Look at that. That's perfect. And lastly, let's see what understanding does for this one. Increase understanding. Generate. This person wants to understand how to maintain a healthy relationship. Perfect. Great. It sounds like they have a lot of issues to work on. Let's see. Skip forward to the end. They may also benefit from joining a support group where they can discuss issues with others who are going through the same thing. That is fantastic advice. They may also benefit from reading books about healthy relationships and dating etiquette. See? So this is what I mean by having these core objective functions built into an AGI, which will allow it to have that pro-social perspective on everything. So let's move on to the next example. So this one is anxiety about climate change. Oh, this wasn't from Reddit. This was a news article I found. So this, I took the first bit of a news article. I searched for climate change, just to show that these functions can actually can address more things than just interpersonal issues. So reduce suffering. Let's see what it says about this. And let's see. This person is suffering from anxiety related to the crisis. They're experiencing denial, fear, anger, and sadness. So it's queuing off on this stuff. It doesn't fully understand that this is a news article, and that is because of, again, I need to do a little bit more work on the training data set, but I wanted to share this initial success. So it is important for this person to recognize that their symptoms are related to the climate crisis and not something else. If they are concerned that they may be experiencing symptoms of depression, they can seek out counseling or treatment. So again, this is looking at it for a very specific lens, where it's clear that, like, okay, we're talking about anxiety, so maybe there's depression or PTSD or other things associated with it. And honestly, I think that there's some wisdom in that, because not everyone has climate anxiety, right? So I wonder if there's some comorbidity there, where someone who is predisposed to climate anxiety might also have underlying conditions. So this model is not explicitly stating that, but I think that there is some wisdom in that, and it could be worth exploring. And that is, if that's not the case, that's fine. This will be improved as the training data set improves. So let's go to increase prosperity. So prosperity has a major implications for climate change. So let's see what it says about increasing prosperity in light of climate change. Prosperity is curtailed by anxiety related to climate change. The current level is fairly low, but is still impacting their ability to thrive. A prosperous life for this person would include a more stable emotional state, which would allow them to better cope with the challenges of the future. Again, this is all very sage wisdom. Even if this is just a, quote, statistical probability of what someone might say, this is valuable information. And then you see it started repeating itself again, which this is why I need to improve the quality of the data set. It just started repeating itself verbatim. Again, this is a prototype. So thank you for your patience. And finally, increase understanding. I can spell. I know words. Increase understanding. This person is asking how they can manage their anxiety about climate change. They may benefit from learning how to self-regulate their emotions and to set SMART goals. I'm not sure what those are, but it's probably drawing from something that it read about anxiety management. It is also, let's see, skipping forward to the end, it is also important for this person to recognize that they are not at fault for feeling anxious about the climate crisis. That is great. It is important for them not to feel ashamed or guilty about their feelings, and instead seek out help in managing their anxiety. See, this is wonderful. This is very sage advice. Let's see. Let's move on to the last example, and then I'll let you go. This one is much shorter. Let's see, and I think this came from an anxiety subreddit. So let's see, reduce suffering. This person is suffering from social isolation and depression. They are also experiencing feelings of guilt, shame, and unworthiness. This person might benefit from counseling or therapy to help them cope with their depression and build a sense of belonging. They may also benefit from group therapy in order to build a sense of connection with others. It is possible that this person is struggling with mental health issues due to their recent events in their life. If this is the case, they may need to seek out some sort of counseling or therapy to help them cope with their symptoms. It is also possible this person has social anxiety and feels they do not belong in the world. If this is the case, they may need some sort of intervention or treatment in order to overcome their social anxiety. It is important for this person to find healthy ways to cope with their symptoms in order to prevent them from becoming severe enough to cause harm to themselves or others. So this is great. This is, if you were to have these thoughts in your mind when deciding how to interact with this person, this is all really valuable stuff. Okay, so let's move on to increase prosperity. This person's prosperity is curtailed by negative emotions they are experiencing. They are feeling very down and hopeless. This person could be encouraged to seek help in dealing with their depression. They may benefit from counseling or therapy. You might notice that there's kind of a repeating trend here. This has a lot to do with the training data, which, yeah. It's pretty obvious why there's a bias towards recommending counseling and therapy, although I will say most people could benefit from therapy. A prosperous life for this person would include living a life that is less stressful and more fulfilling. They could be encouraged to find ways to increase their social support network, including finding new friends, finding new hobbies, and finding new interests. The key here is that they need to find ways to increase their emotional prosperity. The lack of emotional prosperity has led to a lack of financial prosperity. So here is where it's starting to confabulate. And once again, this is due to the quality of the data set. I need to go through and manually clean up the data so that it's going to be a little bit more on point. Because it is assuming that they have a lack of financial prosperity. We don't know that from this information. So I want to clean up the data set and reduce that. But also you see it starts repeating itself verbatim again. Increase understanding. And last but not least, this person does not understand why people hate them. They need to understand that people have different personalities and some people are more sensitive than others. That applies to themselves. It is possible that this person is being offensive without meaning to be. Yes, that is very common when struggling with mental health issues. They need to understand the difference between trolling and being a genuine asshole. All right, I'm glad I didn't say that out loud. They also need to understand how to deal with rejection and criticism. This person may benefit from reading books about empathy and social skills, such as The Unwritten Rules of Social Relationships by Sherry Schneider, or How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Look at that. That is phenomenal. It's actually recommending resources. Again, GPT-3 has read more books than any single human. They may also benefit from reading about how people perceive them and why they perceive the way they do. This information can be found in books such as Secrets of Successful Persuasion by Robert Bly or The Art of Woo, The Science of Happiness by Tal Ben-Shahar. So, yeah, reading books is a great way to increase understanding. This is a phenomenal response, and I am glad that this is how the video is ending. So, just keep in mind that this is a prototype of implementing the core objective functions. There's a few steps that come after this, and I'll talk about those steps that come after in follow-up videos. And also, I'll continue working on improving the training data set. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.